So these are the patterns of development that we'll be talking about in the class. And again, these are on the yellow pages if you want to see the questions that go along with those or write notes in them. Let's talk about description. So the main questions that go along with description are: what does it look like? What are its characteristics? And if you can remember that, the sensory, the hear, taste, smell, and feel all go along with description, then you can remember this category. So we normally reserve description for fiction pieces, but we also see this pattern of writing in nonfiction. Description of time and place sets the stage where a story can unfold. It gives a reader the sensory images as context for the message. So whether writing objective or subjective description, your writing should have a clear controlling idea so that your reader knows what to do with those descriptive details. We normally reserve description for fiction pieces, but we also see this pattern of writing in nonfiction. Description of time and place sets the stage where a story can unfold, and it gives the reader the context of the message. Here's an excerpt from Dreiser's Sister Carrie. Caroline, or Sister Carrie, as she had been half affectionately termed by the family, was possessed of a mind rudimentary in its power of observation and analysis. Self-interest with her was high, but not strong. It was nevertheless her guiding characteristic. Warm with the fancies of youth, pretty with the insipid prettiness of the formative period, possessed of a figure promising eventual shapeliness and an eye alight with certain native intelligence, she was a fair example of the middle American class. So in this type of description, the author describes an impression of what is observed. What is described is subjective. The reader experiences the world as it appears to the author or the narrator. In subjective description, the controlling idea should be a dominant impression of a particular scene or person. So in this case of Sister Carrie, the supporting details should help the reader understand the impression. A phrase like, "it was a gloomy morning," is an example of a dominant impression. And good supporting details could include something like, "the morning air felt damp and cold. People huddled inside their coats." Description is also used in nonfiction writing to present an objective picture of an object, person, or place. Writers in this setting will avoid emotional impressions or responses and instead report what is seen. So here's an example of scientific writing, and pardon me if I'm mispronouncing these words. So the Acer barbatum is a small to medium-sized deciduous tree, usually ranging from 15 to 25 meters or 50 to 80 feet tall when mature. Bark is light gray and smooth on younger trees, becoming ridged and furrowed with age. That should say leaves. Leaves are opposite and shallowly to deeply palmately lobed, with a few blunt teeth but no serrations. The leaf sinuses are rounded, unlike those of red maple, the Acer rubrum, which are sharply V-shaped. And of course, I'm going to correct the spelling while I see it. So in objective description, the controlling idea should identify the object, scene, or person to be described as objectively as possible. Those descriptive details should add substance to the main point and don't add anything that does not support the controlling idea. Think about detectives who are writing about a crime scene. They need accurate and clear reports. Typically, detectives take a spatial approach. They have paragraphs with the controlling idea that identify an area of the crime scene to be explored. So they might start with, "outside the entrance to the apartment, we found evidence of a break-in," and then the rest of the paragraph will present evidence found in that location demonstrating the detective's general conclusion. So description's used for a purpose. Let's go back and talk about an idea I like to call show, don't tell. And let's look at these different types of words and phrases. So let's look at the top one, specific versus general. So the specific phrase, Australian Shepherd puppy, versus its general word as pet. The specific phrase, zucchini squash, and its general word, vegetable. The specific phrase, blue and pink polka dot umbrella with a broken spoke, as opposed to rain gear. So which of those phrases do you like the most? And which do you think would create a sensory backdrop for a story to unfold? the specific ones are much better than the general ones. They just are. When we're talking about description and giving a context for a story to unfold or an idea, those ones in the specific category are better. That is showing the reader what it is and not just telling them it's a pet. Show them that it's an Australian Shepherd puppy. You can even go into more detail there. Let's look at the next table. Concrete versus abstract. He kissed her and smiled into her eyes. Versus, he loved her. Her hands were shaking. She was afraid her knees would not support her. Versus, she was scared. And then, as the sun passed over the horizon, the sky turned pink and gold, and rays of brighter gold fanned across the sky into the high clouds above. Versus, it was a beautiful sunset. So obviously, one of these is showing and one is telling. The ones that show us are those concrete ones. They show us those details and those sensory images. Versus just telling us, it was a beautiful sunset. That's great. You just told me what it was. You didn't show me anything. Okay, that's what I mean by show versus tell. So if I tell you that in class or write that on a paper, you need to show me, not tell me. Come back to this part of the video and understand what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to include those sensory images to really create that context for the story to unfold, or even for the conclusion to be drawn. Okay, so I have a concrete column blank. That's for showing. That's using the sensory images, and I've given you an example of an abstract sentence that's just telling me what's going on. So the ones on the right are those classic tell me sentences. They're not descriptions, even though they should be. They're just statements. So try to write these with more concreteness by using the senses. So this is going to be practice for show me. So I'll have that on a separate page for you guys to do. Lastly, I want to talk to you about this idea of ordering in description, and we're going to specifically talk about 4 ways of ordering. Ordering by time, or chronological order. Ordering by space, or spatial order. Ordering by groups or types. This is some sort of like classification or comparison type ordering. And order of importance. This is what we call emphatic, which emphatic means where the emphasis is placed. So the emphatic ordering or the climactic order. So a writer might organize their description in different ways to suit a purpose. This goes back to method connecting to meaning. They might order the events by time, by space, by the group or type, or by the order of importance. So let's talk about what these each look like really quickly. Ordering by time, or chronological order, is usually used in narration and process analysis, which is another pattern of development, but it can be used in other cases as well. So some words that can clue you in that this is an order by time is first in time, last in time, the season, a reference to the season, a reference to morning, night, early, or late. So in chronological order or time order, items, events, or ideas are arranged in the order in which they occur. Then we have ordering by space or spatial order. So ordering from one place to another is usually effective in physical description, but can be used in other cases as well. So some clues are left, right, top, bottom, inside, outside, here, there, far, or near. So in spatial ordering, items are arranged according to their physical position or relationship. In describing a room, I might start with what I see as I enter the door, then what I see on the left wall as I step into the room, and eventually to the far side of the room. In describing some social or political problem, I might start with discussing the problems on the West Coast, then those problems of the Midwest, and then end with those problems on the East Coast. So in describing a person, I might start with describing their eyes, then moving down to their shoulders and their posture, and end with, what they're holding in their right hand, as an example. So here are some other clues on this slide for ordering by space. So things like just to the right, a little further to the south of Fort Worth, a few feet behind, directly under the bridge, on top of the mud-caked and worn saddle. You'll see that that's even more sensory images included in a spatial description, or turning left on the trail. Then there's ordering by groups or types. This is the classification and comparison. So this method involves 2 steps. The first step is labeling the groups or types by answering the question, what is a paragraph about? Or what kind of things are these details about? The second step arranges the types in chronological, spatial, or emphatic order. It gets a little confusing, but basically, like, these are some transitions to help you get your mind around that. So if you're describing a computer, you might start with the separate components of the machine, its monitor, its keyboard, its hard drive, etc. Then a description of the computer purchase, the process of purchasing a computer, which might contain information about the tech specs, the speed of the hard drive, the RAM, the vendors, etc. So groups or types is kind of a topical category, and it's kind of a catch-all for some of these ordering that you'll come across if it's not obviously chronological, spatial, or emphatic. And then let's talk about emphatic, or order of importance, or climactic order. That's the other name for it. So this structure may be used for an entire paragraph or essay, or it may be used for portions of an essay. So, for example, one section of an essay might require sequential organization, while another section requires order of importance, and that's okay, you can do that. The similarities in a comparison may need to be arranged emphatically. So, most essays move from the least emphatic, the least emphasis, to the most emphasis, or the most important, or whatever. However, under some circumstances, for example, an argument addressed to a skeptical audience, the strongest point would come first. So some words that clue you in that something is written in emphatic order are least important, most important, easiest, hardest, least convincing, most convincing, and some other principles of organization based on emphatic order include these in bold. So you could write something in general to specific order, specific to general order, most familiar to least familiar, simplest to most complex, order of frequency, or order of familiarity. This honestly depends on your audience and the topic, but mostly the audience, whom you're talking to, and what their needs are as you're talking to them. So here's an example, and see if you can figure out what what type of ordering it is. So pause the video, read this, and see if you can figure it out. That's right, it's chronological order. So this is written, this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It's written in the order of the occurrence of those events. Read this one, pause the video and read this one, and see if you can figure out what type of ordering this is. That's right, good job. This is spatial ordering. This is ordering based on the space or the physical position of the items. Now let's read this one. Pause the video and read this one and see if you can figure out what type of ordering is here. Yeah, this one is an order of importance or emphatic. It's organized from the least important to the most important. Notice at the end it said, most of all, I learned to trust my mother. Let's do one more. Pause the video and read this one and see what kind of ordering it is. That's right. This is ordered by groups or types. So this is kind of that catch-all thing again. This is a topic or something that all goes together. It's being described as its group or type. And that's it for a description. See ya!